I think it's very important to listen to the senior management at Palantir speak, whether you are a Palantir investor, whether you're debating if you want to invest into Palantir, maybe you want to increase your position, maybe you want to shrink your position, or maybe you have some questions about the ethics around Palantir, so on and so forth. I think it's very important to hear actual senior management, regular people, the people that are not in front of the cameras every single day, for example, like Dr. Alex Karp, speak about Palantir and how Palantir is associated with their specific department. Earlier this week, Miriam Marwick, who's a senior vice president over at Palantir in the Department for Federal Emerging Technology, was on a panel. It was an all-woman panel. They were all executives of some top companies in the world, including Raytheon, and they were speaking about missile defense. I think this is a phenomenal interview. And again, Palantir employees absolutely stole the show. There were many speakers, but it was literally frontline and center on Palantir. The spotlight was on Palantir, and Miriam did a fantastic job explaining Palantir. They were asked specific questions like safety. Of course, they spoke about AI and AI integrations. And they also spoke about the challenges or lack thereof the challenges of hiring people to actually work for their specific companies, in this specific case, Palantir. If you have 20 minutes, I definitely 100% suggest that you listen to this amazing, amazing panel. I cut all the fluff out, all the bullshit is gone, and it's just Miriam speaking for the next 20 minutes or so. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to remind you, I do have channel membership. If you want to support the channel, it's $3 a month. You get a really cool logo next to your name, so you know that you support the Berg, and all my subscribers know that as well. And you get really cool emojis next to your name that only my channel members get to use. They're custom made by me. Thank you very much and enjoy this interview.
Our panel is called the Industrial Base for Missile Defense. We have a great group assembled for you today, and I want to thank CSIS and the Reagan Institute for holding this event. I'm Marcus Weisgerber. I'm with Defense One. I write about the intersection of business and national security. So real quick, I'm going to introduce each of our panelists. I'm then going to ask each of them to speak for 4 to 5 minutes and give introductory remarks. We'll then have moderated discussion for 20-ish minutes or so, and then we'll take some audience questions and questions from our viewers online. So with that, let's go down the line. We have Miriam Marwick, Senior Vice President of Federal Emerging Technologies with Palantir Technologies. Miriam, thanks for coming. Then we have...
First of all, thank you for inviting me to participate and share some thoughts today. I joined Palantir Technologies, as Marcus pointed out, about 2 years ago. Prior to that, was an analyst for the System Evaluation Division at the Institute for Defense Analyses for actually over a decade. And in that role, I got to conduct several studies on missile defense and strategic deterrence, as well as conduct some technical analyses of many of the systems in question that comprise our missile defense enterprise. So I'd like to offer some observations on this panel. Obviously, we have some pretty formidable companies represented here. I wanted to give the perspective of a software company as a former electrical engineer and analyst of weapon systems, and what my perspective is from my perch at an advanced commercial software company. So 3 observations that I wanted to share. First is that even our most exquisite and impressive capabilities with respect to missile defense are as effective as the ability of those who operate those systems to actually effectively deploy them in the time of crisis, in the time of conflict. And so when we define the requirements for our missile defense systems, we tend to stack them up against the threat, against very specific targets that they're meant to defeat. And in doing so, we sometimes make assumptions about what the operator knows about the entire scenario or the crisis at hand, or all of the intelligence that supports our understanding of the conflict at that time. That individual who, in decision maker, or that part of the operational community who is under that threat at that time has to make the decision. So the window of time to react during an event or conflict is incredibly limited. And so we are always thinking about how software can improve our ability to react really quickly to and really effectively to a specific threat. So advanced software helps in a number of ways. First of all, it allows us to do large-scale fusion and data integration, ensuring that the decision makers at that point of operating missile defense systems have all the information, including intelligence information that's gathered left of launch. And they have that at the moment of a launch. Second, we understand that software can dynamically deploy a certain level of selective automation. So I can speak about AI a little bit later, but just straightforward automation often can reduce the cycle of decision-making pretty significantly. And that by itself changes the effectiveness of the actual weapon systems in question. And third, software creates a very connected battle space and a very holistic picture of everything that's going on and everything that needs to be considered when defeating a particular threat. The second observation I'd like to make is that we're often very careful to design systems around specific missions. And an enduring challenge in missile defense, from my perspective, continues to be how do we integrate all of these capabilities together, as Vice Admiral Hill mentioned earlier. What we really want out of our missile defense development is a collective system of systems, not a specific, we can solve this with this, but being able to bring everything together to address the overall threat to our national security. So if designed correctly, a software platform can maximize the modularity, the interoperability across various missile defense systems. It can fuse data from any number of sources, and therefore, the more sensors, the more sources, the better off we ultimately are, but only if we have the right software that can handle that massive influx of information that we're trying to use. I think this is where, the ability to have companies, industry, be able to work together and collaborate on hardware and software advancement is where we will see the most significant change in the future. And the third observation is that I have seen some resistance to the idea that AI or automation is a value or makes a contribution to the safety of operating missile defense systems. And there is a thought that perhaps it could increase the risk of escalation. Actually, what we have seen is that in the right hands, developed by the right people, the right experts, AI has the potential to really significantly reduce the risk of escalation. And the reason I say this, AI, automation, both of those, as a baseline principle, we believe at Palantir that humans belong in the loop, that humans are at the center of decision-making, and that AI or autonomous contributions don't take away the power of human decision makers, but actually augment it significantly, make them much more effective at what they need to do. And when time is of the essence, actually is not the time to test the limits of the human decision maker. That's the time to empower them with the speediest and most aggressive influx of information and the ability to make powerful and timely decisions. So I actually really believe that the future success of the missile defense enterprise depends on our determination to make investments in these areas. And I believe that we have seen the indication that our adversaries understand this, they believe this, and that just makes it even more imperative for us to stay ahead of these challenges.
Great. How are each of you doing in attracting new engineers, new talent to work on these really complicated programs? Myself, I think back, it's got to be 5-6 years ago, I was at Sandia Labs with Dave Goldfein, who was the Air Force chief at the time. And we were meeting at the Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center, and we were talking about the future of nuclear recapitalization. And they were literally talking about having to go to nursing homes to find engineers to get some historical perspective. So I guess maybe we could just go down the line. Everyone could talk a little bit about what each of their companies are doing to attract that next generation of talent and to capture maybe some of the expertise that has been done from the generation before now.
Actually, I love this question because I feel like you'll note our company leadership does not speak about this issue much because we don't face this as an issue. We have, for some reason, could be the fun environment of the workplace. I'm not sure, but we have a very strong appeal to young engineers and young, incredibly talented people who learn very quickly and who are very open to mentorship from the people who have worked in this field before them, and they absorb very quickly. I think that the question of attracting is only the first, it's like the phase 0 of the problem. It's like, first, how do you get people to want to work in this, to bring them in? And it's more than just luring them. It's also, how are you cultivating the right environment for them to thrive and want to stay in it? Because as I think the women on this stage have shown, the really important thing is to encourage people to want to stick with this, because that's where the really great insight comes from, is people who are immersed in it for an extended period of time and don't want to just bounce off to the next interesting and exciting opportunity. And that's really what we focus on a lot, is cultivating the atmosphere once we bring in that talent, to really encourage them to appreciate the mission and want to stick with it.
Debbie.
Yeah, for me, especially if I just focus it on the missile defense portion, it really is about the mission. When you try to, you talk about a program you want people to work on, but they'll never get to see it operate. Hopefully they never get to see it operate. That's, NASA has a very different sell pitch. So that's a sell pitch that's a little bit harder. So it has to be about the mission. You think about a system that protects every single person that lives in the U.S.
For it.
Digital twinning and what Lisa mentioned. So people often think that supply chain doesn't apply to a software company. It really, really does, but in a very different way. But I don't want to pull on that thread so much as a lot of what we have learned. So we are we have a very large commercial business in addition to our defense business at Palantir. And one of the things that we're seeing, which is exciting, is how the defense industrial base is starting to take its learnings from the way commercial industry appreciates how important it is to do that digital transformation and to really understand your supply chain before it's a problem. Right, so COVID obviously accelerated everybody. My kids love to use the word supply chain now. Didn't think that was going to be part of their vocabulary at this age, but it's changed our thinking. But when it comes to this kind of complex manufacturing that you have to do, it's a really important thing, and it's our customers on the commercial side have understood that for a while, and we're now starting to see, when we partner with companies on the defense side of the business as well, how urgent that's become. And these are some of the most complex systems in the whole world, with some of the most bespoke parts integrated into them. And we can't afford, from the perspective of our national security, to not pay very close attention to the digital implications of all of that. And what we've seen is that it's not just about protecting the development of those things, but there's often tremendous acceleration of the ability to produce these things on a much more efficient and assured production line when you employ the right types of tools. And now to the AI question.
So let's pivot right to the AI question. Where should, what is the role of AI in missile defense? Where could it help make those decisions earlier, and how quickly can it help, or how much more time essentially can it give you?
Okay, so there are, and I think someone brought up the kill chain earlier, there are going to be fundamental points across the kill chain where we need a human decision maker. But there are a lot of places where we currently have humans making decisions and trying to discriminate massive quantities of information where a machine can do a better job. So what I think is the most powerful thing that we can be doing in our design of AI is, first of all, not make it about the quantity, but about the quality of where we apply it. So of course, we tend to evaluate our ability to compete with our adversaries in this field of like how much money is being spent, how many different types of AI are being developed. But it's not that. It's really the sophisticated and intelligent application of AI to how it augments the human in that loop, right? So we say like the human's in the loop, but the human is actually the core of how we apply AI to the mission. And what we see is significantly empowered operators when they are given AI that is allowing them to process information, much more information and much more quickly than they could possibly be consuming that on their own. And it does not in any way increase the risk from the operator's perspective, because it is empowering them significantly to be able to make informed and timely decisions.
Are you seeing resistance within just the military at all about using AI at all? You know, we hear from
not one person.
right, but we hear from leadership this desire to include AI and machine learning and everything, essentially.
Yeah.
But as we go through the layers from everything from acquisition requirements folks to the operators themselves, I guess, what is the comfort level? And if anybody else has a good example of this too, please chime in. What is the comfort level they have to using AI, both, I guess, if you could put it on current systems, if it's there already, or in the future?
So I think there's a lot that is, there's automation and then there's AI, right? And so those aren't necessarily interchangeable. But when you look at, from a leader's perspective, if you set it up as pursuing this increases the risk and not pursuing this is a safer option, then I think anybody in a military leadership position is going to opt for the lower risk, right? There are lives at stake. There's no room for error. This is really serious. But if you start demonstrating, and this is all about taking this from the theoretical and into implementing real technology up front, and then not asking them to just believe in the future, but showing them what can be done now, then you start to be able to show them a very different calculus. And that is, don't pursue this, and you might actually be subjecting yourself to increased risk. And when you change that calculus, then you see people start to warm up to the idea. But again, we're all about proving capability and not asking people to trust that in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, this is going to add value.
Can everyone talk about left of launch efforts that they're working on? I know we heard that come up. I know it seems like one of those things that we've heard along with lasers for 40 years, and we have a question about lasers that we'll go to next. But can anybody talk about any left of launch? Whether it's I guess jamming or something else that I'm not thinking about, or is this all like super classified stuff?
From the perspective of left of launch, I mean, I really think that's all software to a certain degree, and that is being able to really understand what is important to know at the point of launch, and how do you really access that information when it counts. So left of launch can be everything having to do with cyber, electronic warfare, as you mentioned, all of the intelligence data that's out there, and being able to figure out how it has any bearing on the decision making that the operator needs to make in that very short window of time after launch. And I think so left of launch is definitely an emphasis that we have been investing in, and it impacts not just missile defense, but all JADC2 and all of those domains as well.